college football is back. For those of you that don't watch sports, don't worry. We're not going to get too much into the sports aspect of this, but we are going to get into the aspect of where it crosses over into everyday news, because the biggest story that came out of college football was former All-Pro Hall of Famer in the NFL, Deion Sanders. He took over the head coaching job at the University of Colorado. He came from a smaller school, a historical Black college that he was coaching at in Jackson State. He had some success down there, and then he left after 3 years and took this job at the University of Colorado. He had a huge press conference that happened earlier in the year, and he was telling the kids on the team, because Colorado has not been good over the last few years, including winning only one game last year. He told the team in the first meeting, if you don't want to be here, pack your bags and get out, because I'm bringing my luggage with me, and it's Louis. A huge quote that played all throughout social media, and he overturned the roster, brought in 68 to 69 new players on the roster as people transferred out and people transferred in. He even brought in his three sons, one who was a quarterback at Jackson State, the other one was a safety. He brought all of them to come to Colorado, and they went through training camp, and they played the first game of the year against a team that played last year for the national championship in TCU. They're underdogs by 21 points, and they go out there and win the game. Now, why am I mentioning this story? Why am I mentioning just a normal college football road win by Colorado over TCU? It's mainly because Deion Sanders is a bigger than life figure, obviously, as a multi-sport star, but it's what happened in the press conference afterwards, the exchange that Deion had with a reporter, Ed Warder, formerly of ESPN, who used to cover him back in the day when he was a member of the Dallas Cowboys. They had this kind of heated exchange going back and forth a little bit as Deion started to call out members of the media that he recalled writing articles this past offseason about his brash style, how he had the first interaction in the conference, and how these folks, at least the team, wasn't going to gravitate to him, and they were going to have a terrible season. And here he comes out on a nationally televised noon game on Fox television and goes out there and beats the team that played for a national championship. He asked Ed Warder in the exchange, do you believe? I want to play the full clip here, and we're going to react and answer the overarching question of, should somebody be rooting for you or against you if they're covering you? Take a listen to what Deion said to Ed Warder in the post-game press conference.
What's up, boss? You believe that? You hold on. Oh no. Do you believe that? Huh? Oh no. I read through that bull junk you wrote down. I read through that. I sifted through all that. Yeah. Oh no. Come on. Do you believe? You don't believe. You just answered it. You don't believe. Next question.
Besides the funny exchange there of you don't believe, and we're going to get again into the overarching question, because the reason I wanted to talk about it was it got me thinking of the way our politicians are covered in the media. Everyone associates certain channels with being fairer to Democrats, i.e. MSNBC, and certain channels being fairer to Republicans, i.e. Fox News. Hell, I know I was in the green room the other day, as Nick knows, with a member of Congress on the Republican side of the aisle who was going on Fox News later on. So everyone has this perception that you're going to get treated better this way versus that way if you go to this other network. Well, here we have a reporter that's just covering the game at a national level, and Deion is calling people out that he thinks have been rooting against him and the success of his players and his program. We're going to get into all that in a second, but I wanted to mention about the news and politics space, because there's been times where President Biden has had exchanges with reporters and something similar has played out. Did you pay attention to this? Did you pay attention to that? Are you covering me fairly? Take a listen to President Biden and an exchange he had with a reporter a few months ago when she asked him about Speaker McCarthy's proposed bill, in time for this budget funding. Take a listen.
McCarthy said that he asked you numerous times if there was anywhere in the federal budget for cuts. but he did not get an answer. So is there
I got a specific answer. Got a specific answer again today.
Which is what?
The first, you didn't listen either, so why should I even answer the question? We cut the deficit by $160 billion, B-I-L-L-I-O-N, dollars on the Medicare deal. We cut the deficit by raising the tax on people making 55 corporations that made $40 billion to 15%, and the list goes on. So,
But in terms of what he is proposing, is there any room for negotiation?
what's he proposing? Did he tell you?
He talked about...
No, I'm not being facetious. Did he tell you what he's proposing?
He was talking about the bill.
Yeah, but what does it propose? Do you know? I'm not being a wise guy. You all are very, very informed people. Do you know what that bill cuts?
There is a long list of things that it cuts. That
No, it doesn't say. It says, does it say what it's going to cut? Or just say generically it's going to cut? You get the problem.
So you hear there in the exchange where President Biden's like, hey, for lack of a better term, you didn't do your homework. You're asking me a question about something. You didn't even read it because it isn't there. It doesn't exist. And it got me thinking, it's just these parallels of beat reporters, not only in news, but also in sports, that are trying to cover the subject matter. And sometimes their opinion gets into the reporting, which they're not supposed to do unless you want to be an opinion columnist. And Deion took it out on somebody who was writing an opinion column, or at least giving his opinion on television about how Colorado will perform. So it got me thinking of this high-arching question of, should I be rooting for you to be successful if I'm covering you, or should I be rooting for you to fail? And the purpose of journalism is not to root for any of that, either in news or sports. We're not rooting for the president of the United States. No, we shouldn't be rooting for the president of the United States to fail, as Peter Jennings once, Peter Jennings, no, Ted Koppel, once said to Sean Hannity, the problem that I have with you is you're not doing journalism. You're giving your opinion. So now people are holding you more to that opinion, not the journalistic part of this where you're just supposed to tell me the information. And I think Deion is right to go after some of these folks that said his team wasn't going to do anything and they were going to get trounced in this opener and they didn't like what he was doing. I wanted to open this up to you, Nick. And by the way, for folks, email us at canwepleasetalkpodcast@gmail.com because I would love to get more people's feedback and really have a conversation about journalists covering subject matters, right? You try to cozy up to the subject matter so you can get information, so you can put it out there in articles. But then the problem becomes if you write something that's perceived negative by them, you get their ire or the people that are fans of theirs. If you write something positive, you're too much of a homer. Where does that fine line exist for both news and sports? When you heard the exchange of the press conference over the weekend with Deion Sanders, and obviously theatrics aside, sports results and where Colorado stands in the college football playoff, nobody cares about that. That's not the purpose of this. The purpose of this is, should I be rooting for you to be successful as a Colorado beat reporter, right? Because I'm covering the team. The answer should be no. But what says Mr. Severi?
Well, I would say yes, but you just can't be obvious about it. The example I always think about is, look at Miami, like look at where you are, right? 2010 LeBron goes to Miami and the NBA landscape suddenly became focused on South Beach. So every beat reporter there, ESPN had what was called a heat index, which was so irritating because even ESPN obviously was hoping for some level of success from Miami. Success, but also some level of failure too. And so you always hope for the drama, but you hope for success. If you are a beat reporter in the city of Miami at the time, you obviously want that. If it's a colossal failure and LeBron leaves or Bosh or Dwayne Wade or whomever, well, there goes your attention because you're not a city that people in sports have really cared about. I mean, no offense, but that's being honest. So in the case of, Colorado, yeah, it's a playful exchange, but Deion just simply kept receipts. I mean, that's all that was. And he rightfully called out someone that said, you wrote something, said something. the other day, earlier today, I was listening to a podcast. They go through betting lines and stuff, for the upcoming week. And the host, whose name I will not mention, but he's a prominent, figure in Boston sports writing or sports blogging, has his own, podcast network. You can fill in the blank who that is. Talked about the upcoming Raiders Broncos game. Broncos are given 4, and he says that, I don't like the Raiders. And he said a couple other negative things. Mike, if I were the head coach of the Raiders and we win that game on Sunday, if I had a chance and this person was at the press conference, if he asked me a question, you don't think I wouldn't stop and say, whoa, do you like us now? Do you like us now?
So wait, let me get to this, because
and I'm not saying by rooting, but what happened in what I have heard today was someone who's just being dismissive of the team. Not to mention the fact that the Raiders have swept Denver in the last 3 years in a row. But again, that all aside, it's not I'm asking rooting. I am asking for a little bit of objectivity. And what Deion took offense with Ed Werder was what seemed to be not objective. Now, I don't know how you determine this objective. I mean, from what I understand, the reporter had said something or tweeted, as you told me, that, Texas Christian University would drop a whole bunch of points. Now, to me, that's just putting out a view. I don't think it's as charged as I don't like Team X. It seems like a whole different conversation. But, as you were saying, well, actually, before I get to the Biden thing, you had a question you want to bring.
No, what I was going to say was, when does receipt sharing get out of control? Because if they lose this, again, without getting too much into the sports weeds, if you don't follow sports, you can easily follow this analogy. Okay. They play 12 games a year. They play a game this coming weekend. Okay. If they lose this game this weekend, and this same reporter wrote something as his prediction column, just like you said, and picks Nebraska to win, can he go up there and now say, hey, I had you guys losing this game and now you lost. Do you believe now in my columns? Like, where does this, do you believe I've got receipts, kind of end? And again, and I know you're going to get into the Biden point, but it's kind of the same thing there. If that reporter had been like, this is what the bill outlines, and President Biden doesn't know that Kevin McCarthy had that because McCarthy gave that to her, like, where does this receipts sharing end? Because we could be at conferences for forever. The point of journalism is to just hold people accountable. And then when you're writing articles, present those facts for people to judge off of, not to give me your opinion, to lay out and present for me the facts of the story that you're covering, depending upon what kind of piece you're writing. If you're writing a piece that's covering the battle between President Biden and Speaker McCarthy right now over the debt ceiling, which was what that press conference was about, okay, give me the particulars of where they are, right? And like he said, what's in the bill? You don't even know. So because it's not real. This whole receipt thing could go back and forth for forever. Where does it stop? Is my question to you.
Yeah, I think it's a matter of, well, there are two different scenarios, because in the case of the president, simply asking a reporter, just, hey, what's in that bill that you can bring to me about what cuts are there? And it's something I've been critical of Republicans forever is you can cut whatever you want, but like, what is your actual plan? I don't have any. But the reporters simply bring up, well, this is what, Speaker McCarthy said to me, which is I would consider not the best form of journalism. Like, read the information, see what's there. And if there isn't anything, then don't ask the question. What you're bringing up here is where, in terms of keeping receipts, where does this end? Because we could be doing this cycle forever. And it is performative. What Deion is doing, and this is what he did, Jackson State, this is what he's always done, is, he's a performative person. Like, this is what he's going to do. It's a way of building culture. It's a way of having the back of his players. Because when you do something like that, and it's funny enough, by the way, if you all are looking for Colorado gear, which more and more people are actually, there's all kinds of stuff that's branded against the coach, which is fascinating. But the point is, there's a culture being built. And what you just saw there was someone who's backing his team. No different than the president backing the Democratic Party when you say, listen, the Republicans have no plan. Because what you just saw was a proxy conversation with what the president should probably be having with the speaker, but the reporter got in the middle of it because she chose to ask the question without enough information to have a fair retort back. What Deion's doing, Ed Werder there, is just simply calling it out. I mean, where does this end? It's a really good question, because if they do lose against Nebraska, do you get to bring it up? And that's where the job of the reporter gets shifted. Because if you are the one that comes forward and says, Coach Prime, I had you all losing. Is there something, should my belief be changed? Unfortunately, the realities of the job is you'll lose the job. That's going to happen. The athletic director of Colorado, Coach Deion Sanders, someone's going to make sure you don't get to continue focusing on the team. Because in that moment, the idea of receipts carrying is given as a privilege to the person who's being interviewed. That's kind of what this is, because that person is under the spotlight. They get to say that. Should they say that? Probably not. But in both Deion Sanders' case and the president, and by the way, go find a show that will draw the parallel between Deion Sanders and Joe Biden. You won't find one. That's why you come here.
You won't.
You won't. In both cases, the person being asked, the subject of the conversation, is going to pull receipts. It doesn't work the other way. Should it work the other way? Maybe, but oftentimes the only time it does, it seems to be, is in the form of a political debate where a moderator can bring up, what has been said in the past, or play a clip or something, or even a show like this when we, play clips and talk about it, not necessarily with the subject. And that's, I mean, ultimately it's not fair, but that is kind of what happens in that type of relationship.
Hey, thanks for watching the Can We Please Talk podcast. Whatever clip you just watched, we hope you enjoyed it, and we hope you stick around for some more. Subscribe to the channel. My partner's over here smashing the button. Come on, do him a favor. So hit subscribe.